Okay. So good. Hello, my name is Dr. Karen Aponte, and tonight I am, okay, we got to start again. Stop recording.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Uh-oh.
Okay. My name is Dr. Karen Aponte, and today I am completing the post-observation of lesson 1 with Frances Kilpatrick, who is located at the Chain of Lakes Elementary School in Winter Haven, and her cooperating teacher is Maria Martinez.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And so for this particular lesson, we are in 5th grade. Third grade, sorry, misspoke. 3rd grade, I have it right here, so please forgive me. 3rd grade, and it's an ELA lesson. So now we are going to begin. And I wanted to, before we started going through the actual form, I wanted to talk about the classroom culture and strategies that you used, Frances, that were the minute I walked in the door and sat down and you were letting students get settled, and you saw someone who was doing something that was very, did a good job of getting settled and getting a book. And you right away, you said, congratulations on taking care of that. And you were very specific about what you did. And I'm telling you, that goes to the heart of a child. And I can see that those students are very receptive to you. You understand the students. You keep an eye on the whole room. So, and it's very obvious to me that you really care about those students and you care about their learning. And so that is my overarching statement before we start this. And then we will continue. So the very first thing you're saying is, explain how you use the pre-observation feedback to improve your lesson. So what I said to you previously, what was the main thing you got out of that?
The main thing that I took out of my pre-op was set your own pace and be in control of your lesson. And I took that to heart, and I tried my best to set my own pace to make sure the students were aware of the benchmark. That's what I'm glad you told me that, because.
And you did a really good job with it. So, when we think about that, we realize those pre-observation meetings are obviously very valuable.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's good for both of us. So explain how your instruction guided practice and with wrap up and assessments, and how it was clearly aligned with the objectives and the learning targets.
Yes, ma'am. I gave explicit instructions for the students to follow, in turn allowing me to receive exactly what I was needing from the students. I gave clear instructions, I gave explicit instructions, and the students in turn were able to give it back to me. The benchmark, they were able to give the benchmark, the examples of the benchmark, they restated the benchmark, they were able to give it back to me.
And that benchmark being context clues. And so, what I observed was that you had the students, it was almost like a reciprocal teaching, chanting type thing, where you said it and they repeated it back to you. And that is a very good tool to help them process and also to keep them engaged. So that was really well done. I really liked that strategy, and I certainly hope you continue to use it with them, because it is hard to get them to internalize these these benchmarks. What is this all about? Why am I doing this?
Right.
And so you were really clear about that. You had them repeat it back to you, brain-based learning. So very good. Yes. And then what evidence do you have that all the K-12 students learn the critical content? So right here is going to be about the formative and summative assessments.
Okay.
So tell me about what, from this lesson, what evidence did you find that they acquired the objectives and had an impact on student learning?
Okay. So with using the informative assessment I used was exit ticket. And at the end of the context clues lesson, I had posted 3 words on the board from their story that they were reading, the Mojave Desert, and they were having to give me the context clue from the word. One of the words was absorb, and they had to give me the context clue in relation to that word from within the text. And out of that, I had 70% of the students learned it, and I was so great. I was so thankful.
Now, when before you post this, you want to add that information to this post, to this this section here. Identify that the exit, that 70% of the students, got it right.
Okay.
So, and the other students, and you could see that was about right with them, because the other formative assessment you did is you asked questions.
Right.
And you had the students see if they knew like you explained what the morphology was and the parts of a sentence, and then you and how the root, about the root word and the affixes, or prefix and suffix. And then you would ask them about it when you had that list of words on the board. And the students sometimes, I was surprised, because I thought several of the students you asked would have gotten it, but because I saw so many people who I obviously knew got it.
Right.
And remember, we talked about how using those sticks to select people fairly, and it is important to be fair. It is important to let students know you're not calling on your favorites, because they get very disaffected by that, and she doesn't like me, and Miss Kirkpatrick doesn't like me, and so forth, or she never calls on me, although other people wish you wouldn't, but and I know that. But so that children really have that perception of fairness, and so this really works. But we also talked about, if a student can't do it and you ask them to call on a friend, that you want to guide them into calling on a friend that you already know gets it. Why don't you call on friends so-and-so? And the whole issue of friends is just creates this really great culture in your class. And I could see that they're all very comfortable with that. But when you ask them, call on a friend who knows it. As we've also discussed, that little group in the back over there with Javier, I'm telling you, they were on, they knew it, they knew all of it. And so you might want to help. You might want to give them opportunities to help the other students, and in that way with the sticks and so forth, because they also will get disaffected if, like, okay, they know what I need to get these people who don't know what to answer. And it is important to give them those kudos when they need it. And the little girl who knew the word genetics, woo! So that was awesome. I know we've already talked about that, but I want this on video, that this little girl knew the word genetic. You were looking for the word family, and she came up with genetics, and you were like, really good. You were like, all right, that's really great. Right. And as I also said to you, wouldn't it have been cool if you could have gone up and let's do the morphology of genetics right here in front of the whole class. So thinking about that, you could have shown those, and you could have gotten it real quickly for yourself and been able to show them what the morphology of the word genetics. And yes, that's your family, the people you share genes with. Absolutely, you are correct. And remember, whenever they're having a little bit different word of yours, as long as it's a synonym, they're right.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you can also say, there's another synonym, and then give them the one you had ready.
Yes.
Because synonyms in English, they're, one of the hard things about the English language is we have so many words that mean the same thing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am.
anyway, so I wanted to get that on here so that, and to be reminded of what we talked about previously, when we talked about the lesson. So, and it was very engaging. I couldn't stop smiling during the whole thing.
Thank you. Thank
You set a high bar. Good luck. Okay, and so we talked about how you verbalized the lesson of the objective, and you got them to repeat it back. I mean, I think unison stuff, doing it back in unison is just, it's like singing. I think it's great. And then you've talked about your evidence. Remember, make sure you put the 70% in there.
Yes, ma'am.
What are you going to do with those 40%? What have you been doing since I saw you last?
Okay, with the 40%, I've been doing small group. I have pulled out the context clues, a game for context clues. So we've been playing, the little game is called Hello, Who Are You? And it's really cute. They have headers, synonym, antonym, example, and definition. And they had to pick up the little cell phone with the text written on it, and they had to apply it to the right column.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And has that really helped them?
It really have, because now they're thinking more on
Yes.
the lines of the information that they read, and how
Yes.
is this a definition or is this a synonym? Do it mean the same thing? So
And so that is great. Now I need you to put all that 70% got it, and then the 40% you did this with in that spot right there after we talked, and then you can because I want it to show up there in that space. So it's a very good idea, because we want to know, what have you done with those people? Just go, oh my gosh, they didn't get it, and move on. No, you did something. Yes, very good.
I have 3 small groups.
So how did the differentiation strategies you included for content, process, and product impact their learning? How did that work out?
That worked out the phone a friend worked out really nice, because the kids, they were able to ask their peers for the answer, or can you help me, opposed to leaning on the teacher to guide them through it. And even the peers kind of guided them to the right answer to help.
Yes, yeah. So there was a lot of information going on to help everybody. I think also in the differentiation strategies, you talked about it, you had them answer questions, and you also had visuals. And I think that's for differentiation, it's important to remember that those visuals you had on the board were helpful to the students. And that is differentiation, because some students need it visually, some students are auditory. I don't know, you probably find most students aren't auditory, but they're more visual, and you made sure you had that all ready for them. You had the written objective up there, you had the different words that they were working on, and that really helped not only engage them, but it helped them with that visual strength that they have.
Yes.
So you might want to put that in there too.
Okay.
So as you were teaching, what adjustments did you make as you noticed students who were meeting the learning target and those who were not? Gosh, we really kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
But let's review it.
Okay.
Go ahead, you review it.
Okay. So I had to use multiple engagement techniques to keep them engaged, and to make sure that they learn the strategy, the benchmark. So we did, I started out with echo reading. That was my opening guided practice, my echo reading. Then I left the echo reading and I went to phone a friend for the morphology piece. And then I left from Phone a Friend to Think, Pair, Share. And actually I did Think, Pair, Share in my opening guided practice and in my instruction. So we were thinking and sharing our thought process throughout the whole ordeal.
And then the additional resources, didn't you get them to read that story?
They read the story. Yes, ma'am. They had to read the story.
That's an additional resource.
Okay.
And your engagement techniques were really varied between the story, the visuals, the echo reading. You just had a list of things. You should just put that whole list in there.
Okay. Okay. Reread.
Then you can re-upload it. Describe the effectiveness of the instructional strategies you use to cognitively engage your students' learning of the critical content, which was context, clues, and morphology.
Mhm.
This feels like you've said it.
Mhm.
But go ahead, yeah.
Okay. So the students, they were able to share their thought process with their peers. And from sharing their thought process, they were able to gain knowledge and apply it from their peers. And with that, they were able to know how to better do context clues. And they knew also how to better understand morphology, because they had to remember the different components of morphology, the prefix or the affixes, the root word, and then they had to remember the suffix along with whether it was Greek or Latin. Then they had to also remember the new meaning of the word.
That new meaning is important, the Greek, and yeah, so I saw that was quite a lot of stuff that they were having to process. So that you needed to go back was not, it was understandable.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
and going back is good. You just make sure you go back
Yeah.
and, relook at it. So, and work in those groups like you said you did, that was a very good thing. So now how will you use the data you collected to remediate? You told me. Let's since we're on that one, again, you worked in groups and you did what?
I actually did 2 activities. The
Oh,
first
cool.
one, yeah, the one of the ones where they had to underline the unfamiliar word, and then they had to highlight the clue within the reading passage.
Mhm.
So when they did that, then I would ask the student to figure out the clue based on based on what they read in the passage. And then they had to tell me, was it the definition that helped him in the passage, or was it a synonym or antonym?
Mhm.
So that was my first tier of intervention that I did for them. And the ones who were still struggling, then we did the the handheld visuals, and played the game, the context clue game.
Good. Now, are you gonna, is there gonna be another assessment for them to going forward to see how they're doing with this benchmark?
Ba, 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 ba. Yes, ma'am, because we're actually covering morphology for about 4 weeks.
Ugh, okay. Right, I'm not gonna ask any more about that.
Okay.
So how did the planning process impact your instruction on writing the lesson plan and planning what you were gonna do? How did that inform your instruction?
I had to chunk a lot of the information, a lot of the benchmark stuff together, because I covered multiple benchmarks. So some of that I had to chunk into smaller pieces of information in order to break it down so the students can really get a good understanding of what they were being asked to do. with the context clues and with the morphology, because they both had to figure out the meaning of the unfamiliar word, and they both had to give me a definition to the unfamiliar word, or they had to give the definition to the unfamiliar word. So a lot of it, I just had to chunk it together to kind of get them to see that this is all related.
And I saw you doing that. So I saw it in it happening. And it is true that you know, it was a lot to process, and there were some students who were just on it, and other students who were struggling. But I could always see that the ones who were on it were just totally engaged.
Yeah.
And you just had a couple of those students who just have a really hard time engaging. And believe me, you keep them moving and focused, and your pace was just right for you.
Thank you.
So you use your pace. And they're just the ones you're going to have to get back into smaller groups and get a closer to one-on-one, you know, instruction with them, because they're just going to struggle with that, you know, in a group setting. They just need a little bit more one-on-one, and it sounds like you did that. So that was great. And then our last thing is, says adapting curriculum for remediation and extension through differentiation. And explain the emphasis on literacy instruction. Well, that's what you were doing. So go ahead and look at that.
Okay. So if the well, echo reading, that was one of the main ones with the benchmark. And then when it came to the context clues, if they didn't know what a synonym was, if they didn't know what an antonym was, then I would play another video, an antonym video, and then I would play a synonym video to kind of help them see the difference.
Yeah, that video was cute and effective. I could tell it was effective.
Yes, ma'am. And
so my little grandson, they were teaching him, and much earlier, you know, things like antonyms and synonyms by showing happy faces and sad faces.
Yeah.
You know, and also about emotions. So they had happy, and he go, this person happy? Is this sad? And they could tell it, and then they would say it. And then it came to the person who was mad and stern, and they go, and what is this figure? And he said, Daddy.
I love it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and stop recording now because we're finished. And then